accident. We're here on purpose, God, and we're here to open your word and to grow with you and become more like you, Jesus. We love you and pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. Good morning. I'm Jason. I'm one of the pastors here. So glad you guys are with us today. Have you guys ever done that game or you're like at a dinner and you're like, okay, you have to make a choice. You can either do this or this for the rest of your life. So here's the question today. For the rest of your life, would you rather experience deep, loving relationships or have a completely comfortable life? We're in church, so all of you are going to pick relationships. But, I asked my daughter, Selah, hey, Selah, she's 13. I asked her this question, and she's like, well, Dad, of course everyone's going to say relationships, but people don't actually live like that. I'm like, wow, Selah, you know how the world works. We say we want deep, loving relationships, yet if we're honest, typically what drives our world is to live for comfort. We seek comfort. We pursue comfort. We seek things that will bring fulfillment. It's interesting to me how there's a lot of people who are uncomfortable often crave more money. And then people who are really comfortable, especially financially, crave more relationships. See, we all know relationships are what we should long for, yet our world lives in a way where we pursue comfort. And the pursuit of comfort might be, I believe, the most significant factor in our society's loneliness. I talk to people all the time that move to Denver. There's a lot of dudes that move to Denver. And a lot of these guys, all these guys that move to Denver, they're always like, yeah, I moved here for the mountains, fly fishing. I'm going to camp every weekend. I'm going to ski. And I talk to them for like a year of that time in Denver. And I never see them over the weekends because that's all they do is they're in the mountains for the weekend. I'm like, how's it going? And they're like, yeah, it's good. I'm like, who are you going with? And they're like, well, I haven't met anyone yet. I don't have any relationships yet. And it seems like we pursue that comfort, yet when there's no relationships in that comfort, it's really not that fun. And then they end up meeting some people like church or the Brook, and they start getting relationships because they're around other people. And they go, man, this is so much better skiing or going to the mountains with friends. Over this last few years, we have trained ourselves that it is normal to be isolated from relationships. And when you're isolated from relationships, what's going to happen is it just kills off all the desire and we start living for comfort instead of relationships. Another factor, I believe, in our loneliness is just individual mobility, which shapes kind of the paradigm of our comfort. Did you know, we as a people are the most traveled people in the history of the world? All of us have this longing inside of us, I want to see the world. I want to see the world. Yet that distances us from daily relationships when we have great mobility. You got to be around to build relationships. I was talking to somebody the other day and I was like, how the newness of travel has just kind of taken over. Traveling the world is a relatively new thing in our culture. Did you know the 707 and the Douglas DC were actually built in the 1950s? These were the first commercial airline planes that were built. And not until 1978, when the Deregulation of Airlines Act passed, was it able for most Americans to afford to fly. So really, for only the last 40 some odd years, have we had the ability to travel the world. This has allowed us to live a life that's maybe not centered around relationship, because we have so much mobility, but is really centered around experiencing the world. Here's what I'm not saying. Travel is not bad. Don't walk away and be like, well, the pastor said I shouldn't travel. It's a sin. No, I love to travel. But I think in our world, we can overvalue travel, and it hurts relationships. Because there is a need for just normalcy of life. We don't always have to be on the go. We need to have the ability and space to have deep, loving relationships. And to prove to you that I'm not believing that it's sin to travel, I went to Mexico after Christmas services. We had 6 Christmas services. Our family's almost dead, so we go, let's go to Mexico. So we went to Mexico. We had an awesome time. We got to go visit our friends who live there. They're some of our best friends. They have 3 kids, all the same ages as our kids. Their name's the Joneses, and we love the Joneses. And we went to their house for a while, and then we went to Isla Mujeres, which is an island off of Cancun, and we took 6 kids to Isla Mujeres. This is a picture of us. I show you only the kids because I didn't want to put myself up on the beach. Didn't want to discuss you. Kids are cute on the beach. 38-year-old without a shirt on is not cute. So we go and we were staying at this like hostel, like condo setup. It was like we had our own like kitchen, we had our own rooms, but right next door to us was this couple, and we have 6 kids. It's 2 families, and we pull up with our 6 kids, and this couple in their 70s is sitting out on their porch right by the room just drinking wine, and I'm like, oh no. Like, this is going to get bad. So I try to like go over and diffuse the situation with my friend Drew. And we're like, hey, we will keep our kids in check. Like, we won't let them be real loud. If you have any problems, you just let us know. And what was so interesting is they're there lounging with their wine, traveling for comfort. And they look at us and they go, it's just so good to hear kids laughing. They did not care about the laughter or the noise. See, they were traveling, trying to be comfortable, yet they knew that relationship was so much greater. They missed that time with their kids. They missed the time of being able to hear and be a part of relationship. So here's what I want us to do today. I want to help us as a church and you as a people start choosing relationships over comfort. I want to show you a path in the scriptures how we can experience deep, loving relationships the rest of our life. So we're in this series in John called The Final Words of Jesus. And really what we're doing is last week we started in John 12 and we'll go all the way through John 21. And this is just the last week of Jesus's life. The first part of John 1 through 11, is like 3 years. It's a lot of time, but it really slows down because these last few chapters are so important. And so as we step into this series, what we're looking at is just this moment where Jesus brings his closest friends together. In John 13 through 17, there's just this one night that happens. It's the Thursday night before Jesus is crucified on Friday, and the disciples, his close friends, and Jesus have a personal dialogue. And it's chapters 13 through 17. It's known as the Upper Room Discourse. And during this time, Jesus is going to share some just deep emotion and really send the disciples into ministry from this. And as we walk through today in John 13, we're going to be looking at kind of the disciples are headed to the Last Supper, and there's this famous scene where Jesus washes the disciples' feet. And I want to show you how this act of washing the disciples' feet is the model of true, loving relationships that we should model. So in John 13, I just want us to walk through 4 steps into how you can have deep, loving relationships. And the first step is this. It's discover deep love. You need the right definition of love to understand how to show love. In John 13:1, this is how it starts out. It says, it was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Jesus is the definition of love. He is pure. He is without sin. He is our example of love. Jesus' love is the greatest. It is the litmus test of all love. And it says that he loved his own. And this is like they are mine. And it said this other word, it says that we're in the world. And that word world is actually repeated 40 times in the next 4 chapters. And it's really to distinguish the difference between Jesus' people, his disciples, his followers, and lost people of humanity. And he goes, no, I loved my own. I love my disciples. And then it goes on to say that he loves them to the end. That word end means telos in Greek. It means perfection. It means completeness. It signifies that Jesus loved his own with the fullest measure of love. There's a general sense of love, like John 3:16 is, for God so loved the world. Telos is different. He loved his own till the end. It's perfect love. It's eternal love. It's redeeming love. It's a love which surpasses all understanding and all knowledge. We are filled to the measure of all fullness of God when we experience his never-ending love. So don't miss this. If you're here and you are his disciple, you are his follower, he will love you till the end, until it is complete, until you are full of his love. It will never end. Even when you might feel like you're at your end, his love will never end. He'll never stop. When you fail repeatedly, when you don't meet up to your own standards, when you're shameful, when you're lustful, when you're angry, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, oh, I don't want to be this person. He loves you till the end, to completion, to fullness. This is the great hope of the gospel. Not only do we have eternity with him, but he will love us till the end. Deep, loving relationships last till the end. You will never be able to experience earthly relationships how they were meant to be to its complete fullness until you discover Jesus' deep love for you. You have to know his love. At the end of this message, if you've never made that decision to trust Jesus, to know his love, you can experience that love today, the deep love of Jesus. All it takes is a repentance of our sin and a stepping into faith and saying, I want you to be my Lord. I want to give you an opportunity to do that. And if you're here today and you're a follower of Jesus, you're his disciple, we can know his love every single day. My prayer for each and every one of you is that there would be an outpouring of his love in your life, that you experience his love. And when you experience his love, you know what it does? It affects every single relationship in your life. So when you know him, it will produce deep relationships with others. So our first step is we have to discover his deep love. The second step that we must take if we want deep, loving relationships in life is this. It's to escape the comfort trap. To escape the comfort trap. Jesus, he has a friendship with his disciples for 3 years. They follow him. He's the rabbi. And Jesus spends countless hours with them. Yet one of his friends, Judas, is going to stab him in the back. He's going to betray him. And is going to break the friendship. I don't know about you, but I've long asked the question, how does Judas get to a place where he would betray one of his best friends? I mean, Judas saw Lazarus raised from the dead just a few days ago. How does he get to this point? I mean, he saw all the miracles. He saw all the wonders. In verse 2, it says, the evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. We go from this amazing love of Jesus to the darkness in Judas's heart. And it was influenced by the devil. See, even before the final supper began, the devil had already put in Judas's heart that he would betray his friend. And last week, Billy talked about in John 12, there's this story of Mary taking a bottle of perfume and pouring it all out on Jesus' feet as a worship offering. And Billy didn't read this passage because every time you bring up Judas, people kind of are like, oh, I don't want to talk about Judas. But we're going to talk about Judas today. Anyway, so verse 12, this is what happens. It says this, but one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected. Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? it was worth a year's wages. He did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Judas's sin was he helped himself. He helped himself. When comfort starts taking over your life, what happens is you start helping yourself. Judas was more concerned about himself than his friends and the disciples. He was more concerned about helping himself than the people they were ministering to. He was more concerned about helping himself than Jesus. It is a very dangerous place to go when you start helping yourself in relationships, when you start making your relationships all about your comfort, all about you. Helping yourself will kill deep, loving relationships. Judas helped himself, and it drove to the murder of Jesus. Judas' greed, his ambition, opened the door to the devil's influence because he wanted to be comfortable. Yeah, so when you talk about Judas, the mood's kind of pretty bad. So I'm going to change the mood real quick. So I went to Casa Bonita yesterday, actually. It was Judah's 10th birthday. We put in for tickets. It takes 9 months to get tickets. You got to put in your email. I got the tickets, and this Lord's favor was on us because we got the tickets for Judah's birthday. So here's us at the Pretty House. It was awesome. Cliff divers. I actually wasn't expecting much. Everybody's asked me, is it worth it? It was awesome because it's awesome when you have kids that are like, there's cliff divers there, and the food was pretty good, and we had a great time, but I helped myself a lot, because this is why you go to Casa Bonita. Sopapillas. You help yourself to as many as you can, and I help myself over and over and over again. And my wife is gluten-free, so I took hers too, over and over and over again. I woke up at 1:30 this morning and felt terrible and terrible and terrible. See, when you help yourself, you do not get the outcome that you desire. See, when we make decisions for comfort, the comfort trap is when we start making life all about helping ourselves. It becomes the driver of our lives. And most people in relationships, we never set out to go oh, I'm going to help myself in this relationship. I'm going to make it about me. It's typically a slow drift of life. We start drifting into comfort. Let's take, for instance, let's see this drift happen. Say you're 5 years married, and 2 years ago, you guys had your first baby, and baby kind of makes life crazy, and you guys just kind of get in the chaos of having a baby. But what you noticed is your marriage is kind of slowly drifted. You never made a decision that you would drift a little apart, but it just feels like you're drifting, and you're drifting. And to be honest, you kind of get in a place where you're just kind of I'm kind of comfortable with how things are. And so you never change the rhythms. You never start going back on date night. You're not having really intimate conversation. It just feels like a drift, but you're also both just really comfortable. When you got married, you never were oh, I hope someday we drift apart, that our love falls apart. Yet this is so common for every relationship in our life, that we start helping ourselves, we start getting comfortable in situations, and we start drifting from one another. This can happen in your marriage. It can happen with your kids. It can happen with friendships. It can happen with coworkers. And there has to come a time where you see that a drift is happening, and you have to make a decision. Am I going to do what is best for the relationship, or am I just going to stay comfortable? And to escape this comfort trap, you have to disrupt the drift. You just can't be okay with how things are going. And that leads us to our third step if you want deep, loving relationships. And it's this. To disrupt the drift, you have to embrace discomfort. You have to embrace discomfort. Diving into deep relationships always brings a pressure of discomfort. It's very similar if you go dive in the ocean. The deeper you go in the ocean, the more pressure exists. The deeper you go in a relationship, the more pressure exists. And so we have to embrace discomfort because it is not comfortable. And what I mean by embrace, it means that we need to hold close to. So many of us, when it comes to discomfortable things, we're just like, okay, I'll go through it. I'm not actually embracing it. I'm not holding it close. No, I'm saying we should hold close to embracing discomfort. Why? Because the very next verse, Jesus is going to show us the model of love for every single relationship. It says this: Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. Deep, loving relationships cost Jesus something. It cost him his pride, and it cost him his comfort. In verse 3, it says that Jesus knew the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God, meaning Jesus was to be exalted. He is God. There is no way the King of the universe should be doing this task, yet he humbled himself. Imagine that day, the disciples, they're walking to the upper room and they're going through the streets of Jerusalem, and all they have on is sandals, and it's muddy, it's dirty. And so when they walk up into the upper room, their feet are dirty, and they look around, and there's no servant to wash their feet, which was the custom of the day and was necessary of the day. And they're looking around, they go, what are we supposed to do? Our feet are dirty. Why was this such a need in their culture? Well, let me kind of paint the picture for you, by a picture. All of you probably have seen Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper, and just kind of like get in the mind of what's happening or about ready to happen in this table. Da Vinci has a beautiful artwork, but it has a lot of details that are missing. One that's missing is they're Middle Eastern men. That's the whitest you can get right there. Second detail, they would not be sitting at a table. In the Jewish culture, no one is on a chair sitting. In that day and age, when you go to a meal like this, they would be reclining. Okay, so it'd be something like this. I got my stretchy pants on, so it's good. They would put their left hand like this, and then they would grab and they would eat food like this. Now look where your feet are. Like, they're all up in everybody's business. Like, you can see everybody's feet. It's gross, it's stinky, it's muddy. It's like, I need to have my feet clean. I mean, what's nice about this posture is, like, say you're like, hey, can you pass the wine? And you're like, oh, I got it. So they're there, and they're going, someone's got to wash these feet. And this is a menial task. This act wasn't even done by Jewish servants. It was only done by Gentile servants. And so they look around in this moment, and they look at each other, and like each disciple's like, I ain't washing your feet. There's no way that I'm going to do that. That is uncomfortable. That is embarrassing. There's no way I'm doing that. I think probably they would have gone, yeah, I'll wash Jesus's feet. I mean, he's master. I would wash his feet. But I'm not washing my peers' feet, even though just a few moments before, Jesus had said, the greatest among you shall be your servant. They did not listen. And then in that time, they're actually debating as they're in the upper room about who is the greatest of them. Jesus told them the greatest among them would serve them, but they did not listen. That makes me feel a lot better, because a lot of times I hear the things of Jesus, but I don't actually do the things of Jesus. And they're like, no, we're going to debate about who's the greatest, and we're going to argue. And no one got up to do the task of the uncomfortable thing, to wash their feet. So finally, Jesus, he stands up. He takes off his outer robe. He puts a towel around. He fills up a basin. He goes, all right, guys, come on. And he starts washing their feet. And as he's washing their feet, I'm sure all the disciples are just like, really? You're doing this? Like, you're king of the universe, and you're washing my feet. Even Peter was like, no, don't wash it. Jesus is like, no, you got to wash it. He's like, wash my whole body. And they're going, no, I'm going to serve you. I'm going to do the uncomfortable thing for you. I'm going to love you. Because deep, loving relationships embrace discomfort. They serve. They don't help themselves, and they're willing to wash feet. So here's what we're going to do. Do something a little bit different today. We're going to have actually a basin of water here and here, like communion. I'm going to have you guys all take your shoes off, and we're going to have our staff line up here and wash your feet. Anybody uncomfortable? And a few of you would like it. That makes me even more disturbed. Anyway, it's uncomfortable. I don't want to see your feet. You don't want to see my feet. I thought about wearing my Uggs today and pulling out and showing you my feet. But I knew some of you might spit up a little in your mouth. No one wants to deal with that. It's uncomfortable. If it was uncomfortable there, it would be very uncomfortable for Jesus. So I felt like I needed to practice what I preached this week and embrace discomfort. So I was like, I should wash one of my staff's feet, like somebody I really respect. I'm going to wash Billy's feet. But then, have you ever seen his feet? Like, there's no way I'm washing those feet. Like it's pretty bad. If you didn't get it, that's his face on a Frodo Baggins in The Hobbit. Okay, my goal was to make you a little uncomfortable. Hopefully I accomplished that. All that discomfort you just felt, I want you to bottle all of that up and go, that is how you should feel as you embrace living in discomfort. Deep relationships are going to make you uncomfortable, and that is a good thing, and we need to embrace it. We need to long for it, because Jesus' love towards his friends should be our love towards one another. Now, we're not physically going to go wash each other's feet, but we have to have this attitude. And there's a great symbolism that is happening here. Relationships are dirty and messy. If you've lived long enough, and friends, relationships, marriages, they are a mess. And what does it take to clean them up? It takes someone the initiative to embrace the discomfort and get on their knees and wash the other person's feet. So what I want us to do is I just want us to take a moment and think to ourselves, how could you personally embrace discomfort and figuratively wash feet in relationships you have? Maybe for some of you, it's just this. You need to have a difficult conversation with a friend. Like, you've been putting off a conversation, there's tension right now, and you just keep avoiding it. You need to embrace discomfort and go, I want a better relationship. I don't want this drift to happen anymore. I'm going to take initiative. It might be just making a phone call or writing a letter to a family member asking for forgiveness. It might be like sacrificing fun for a relationship. I know, like, the mountains are always calling. Maybe you don't go ski next weekend and you go help a friend move. You're like, I'm going to do something uncomfortable for relationships. Maybe you're in here and you're leading a simple church or thinking about leading a simple church, and you're like, it's so much work. Like, I have to open my home up. It's like so much time. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. But if you want deep relationships, you got to go, I know everybody's busy. I got to embrace the discomfort. I got to embrace leading. I got to embrace people in my home. A lot of people, when they come to our church, it's really easy to come into church and kind of like sit in church, eat donuts and leave and come back every week. But I want to encourage you, is there a way you can embrace discomfort? Because getting involved in a church is not that comfortable at times. You got to put yourself out there. You got to like fill out a card. You got to go talk to some people out on the patio. That is not comfortable. But if you want deep relationships, you got to embrace that. I've seen some great relationships form of just people who join our serve team, the people that serve up in kids. They're all like great friends now, or they're out on the patio early, but they had to embrace discomfort. They don't go to brunch. They get here early, like 45 minutes before the service. Some of them went to last service and are upstairs serving kids right now. but it takes being uncomfortable to have that kind of relationships. Maybe for some of you, it's like, oh, yeah, you guys talk about simple church. I know. Maybe this is just the month you go, okay, I'm going to sign up, I'm going to get involved, and I'm going to get a little uncomfortable meeting some people I don't know. You can sign up on our app, and then over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be signing people and getting people connected into Simple Church. Okay. I've been challenged personally by this, to embrace discomfort. And it's not to wash Billy's feet. It's this. I need to pursue friendships even when I'm comfortable with my current relationships. So, as a man, I don't like talking about my feelings, and I don't love deep conversation. I like talking about football and fishing. But a lot of times I hold back, and I'm really comfortable in my relationships. And as I've gotten older, I've kind of kept my circle tighter and tighter, and I'm just busy. I have my 3 kids, I have my relationship with my wife, and I'm kind of I'm in a pretty good spot, but I just feel man, I need male relationships in my lives. I need bros to be bros with and dudes to be dudes with. I need a couple people in my life to actually even maybe talk about my feelings with another dude. And so this last year, I've just been challenged to do this, to pursue it. And to be honest, it is not comfortable at all. I don't want to do it. I have a friend in Boulder. His name's Parker. He leads a church down there. And I have just started pursuing a relationship with Parker. I'm okay, and we don't have time to meet up every week. I think sometimes there's this illusion you got to have friends that you meet up every week and we have coffee every week. No, but in our time where we're just going, I'll give Parker a phone call and just be hey, Parker, here's what's going on in my life. Here's how you can pray for me. Here's what I'm struggling with. What's going on in your life? We were texting this morning about just our services today. And I need to put myself out there and pursue that relationship. Yet it's so difficult for me to do that. There might be somebody in here today that just, you need friends in your life, or maybe you are married and you need someone that's a friend outside of your spouse, and you just need to take this step of going, okay, I'm going to pursue a relationship, and it's going to be sometimes uncomfortable. Yet what happens when Jesus gets uncomfortable? Love is shown at its highest level. Jesus' initial move demonstrates how taking an uncomfortable step can break down all barriers of communication and evoke a response. So imagine this. What if we were a people that chose not to prioritize our comforts, helping ourselves, but we would embrace discomfort? Our lives and relationships could be transformed. God could use us to repair relationships, reunite families, lead others to faith, see people get baptized. Yet it's going to take uncomfortable initiative to break down the barriers. So we'll close with this. So we're to take a step and discover the deep love of Jesus. Secondly, we're to escape the comfort trap. Third, we want to embrace discomfort. And lastly, we want to be people that walk in love. Jesus' act is not meant just to be a showing of his love, but now that his disciples' feet are clean, they're to actually walk differently. It's this symbol. It's your feet are now clean. Now go walk in love towards one another. This is what Jesus said in John 13:12. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I've done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightfully so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. You will be blessed if you serve, if you don't help yourself, if you wash others' feet. No servant is greater than their master. And with our feet cleansed, we carry the hope and peace into our world, and we walk in love and we imitate Jesus. This is how Paul said it in Ephesians 5. Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. We are to walk in love. Every day, we are to take steps of love. And if you want deep, loving relationships, it never happens in a step or in one day. It takes step after step after step to walk in love. And then we get what we desire, deep, loving relationships. Yet, it is not going to be comfortable. It is not going to be the way of this world. It is going to be the way of Jesus. May we be like our Savior, Jesus, and walk in love. Remember the timing of tonight, of this night, when he's washing the feet? In 24 hours, what is going to happen? He is going to go on a walk, but he will have no shoes on. He will be beaten, he will be blood-stained, and he will be barefoot and naked, and he's going to walk up a hill to Calvary in a walk of unending, never-ending love, where he walks to that hill and he dies for each and every one of us. And he said, do as I have done. So we choose today to embrace discomfort, and we walk in love like Jesus. Jesus said, no greater love than this, than a person lay down his life for his friends. Restoration, that's who we are. We lay our lives down for one another. Would you pray for us? Lord, let me just ask you, God, right now, I just ask that you would be present in this room, God. I sense, I know there's relationships in here with a lot of baggage and weight. God, thank you that you have shown us true, deep love through your Son, Jesus. And when we know that love, we can extend that love to others. So God, I pray right now that you would give us the power through your Spirit to escape the comfort trap, and that we would embrace discomfort, and that through your Spirit we might walk every single day in love. I pray for my friends in here today, Lord, that they would experience these deep relationships in all their lives, God. I pray for their marriages. I pray for their kids. I pray that you would just continue to do a work, and that they would initiate these conversations, God. And God, I pray for anyone here right now that has never experienced your deep love, Jesus, the love that never ends, a love that they cannot get anywhere in this world. They may have been searching and searching and searching. Today, God, I pray that they would find your love, and that your love would fulfill them, complete them. And if anyone's in here today, God, I just pray that they would make that choice. You say that if we confess with our mouth and believe in our heart that you are Lord, that you will save us. So if there's anyone in here today, God, I pray that they would do that they would say yes to your truth, yes to your lordship, yes to you being king over their life. Lord, we love you.